Good morning and welcome to Sunday SoulDay, weekly fuel for your mind, body, and soul. Hi, Allie. Hi,
Hi, good
Brendon.
morning.
Hi, Brendon. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning.
Well, we are thrilled to have you on Sunday SoulDay. We have Brendon Ayanbadejo, who's a former NFL Super Bowl champ, an equal rights activist and champion, Orangetheory Fitness, Kidstrong developer, an entrepreneur, and if that wasn't enough, an investor and a father. Welcome to Sunday SoulDay, B.
Thanks, Amisha and Ali. I'm super excited to be on and catch up with you. We haven't chatted in so long, so this is going to be
I
fun.
know, I know. Well, Brendan and I met at UCLA, and one of the nicest people I met during my time at UCLA, and so grateful that our paths crossed and God allowed that for us. And just really grateful that you are blessing Sunday SoulDay. I wanted to take, just a few minutes for the audience to get to know you a little bit more, talk about your early life. You have lived in really interesting places, going from Chicago to Nigeria, then to Santa Cruz. I love Santa Cruz. How has this diverse culture experience like just influenced your advocacy in your personal life?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've lived in some amazing places and I've lived in very different circumstances and situations, from living in the ghettos of Chicago and the projects where people had absolutely nothing. And now I live in Brentwood and I spent some time in Amsterdam, Canada, being in Lagos, Nigeria. I mean, there's so many different people, so many different walks of life, and so many different things that fill people's cups. It's just interesting to see the different geographies and how the people are just so very different. But at the end of the day, in the inside, we're all the same. We all want love. We all want opportunity. We all want to be treated equally. So the same things kind of intrinsically kind of fill us, but the places are all completely different.
So well said and so true. I mean, my father's profession kind of took us not across ponds, but to different states, and I couldn't agree with that statement more. It was such a blessing, to be in those different kind of cities, different places, because it really allowed for us to really work on our adaptability. And like I'm very adaptable in any situation, so I'm very grateful for that experience. I'm sure you are too. Your roots are rooted in a story that embraces love and equality. How have these kind of like family dynamics, because you're both Irish and Nigerian heritage, how has it shaped your advocacy around same-sex marriage?
Yeah, I mean, it's such an interesting topic because we don't really think about it. And in the United States, there was a monumental case, Loving versus Virginia, that allowed black and white couples to get married. Like in America, like black and white folks couldn't get married in the 60s in the South. Yeah, that's true. So, luckily my parents are a product of the 70s, but there's kind of an attack on love that was happening in the early 2000s, and it still remains a bit today where same-sex couples don't have all the same rights depending on the states, nationally, federally, that we have in certain states, right? So I see it as that. It's just an attack on love, but you should be able to love and be with whoever you want to be with, right? As long as, they're consenting adults and so on and so forth. If a man loves a man and a woman loves a woman, or if you feel like you were misgendered at birth and now you're something, or you want to represent who you truly are, who your true identity is, then we should be able to do those things. And we can see it on the outside because it's obvious and clear when it comes to ethnicity and race. But when it comes to gender and equality and love and some of those other things, we kind of have to peel back some layers and look at things a little bit differently. It's kind of like living in different cities and different places where we kind of have our assumptions of what it's going to be like to live in Europe, or what it's like to be in Nigeria, or some of those same things we can't carry with us, what it is to be like to be gay or to be transgendered. Like those things we don't really know, or what it's like to be black if you're not a black person.
Absolutely.
Um, so all these things we kind of have some misinterpretations or some assumptions, and sometimes it's better just to sit back and listen. And luckily for me, I grew up in a mixed race household, and it really made me open minded. And my parents taught me so many different things when it comes to just equality. And I hate to say it's equal rights, but it's just rights. Like everybody wants rights. Everybody wants love and to be treated fair and to be valued and so on and so forth. So I think there's still some work to do in different sectors in the United States. Some of it is ethnicity, some of it is LGBTQ rights. and so on and so forth. So those are things we're continuing to work on. But luckily, my parents raised me right, and I'm open-minded when it comes to those things and very forward-thinking.
Thank you for sharing that. It's so helpful that there are people like you who played professional football that can be an ally to so many people who are struggling to just be who they are. And I want you to teach us a little bit more about what allyship looks like.
Yeah, well, I think it's different for different people. Like for me, it was easy to speak up and speak out about equal rights. For other people, it's not as easy. And sometimes you were born and those things are a little bit harder for you. So I think, we kind of sometimes we have to meet in the middle of the road. Like we know that certain things and certain behaviors are wrong. And I'm talking to, some of the older generation that are gonna, misgender people or say that, oh, that person shouldn't be playing in women's sports because they were born with a different DNA or so on and so forth. So sometimes we have to meet in the middle of the road and we have to extend allyship if you're capable. And then other times, we're forward thinking and we're progressive and, we're going to be like, this is who we are and we're unapologetic. And then, other times you just need to sit back and listen. So allyship comes in so many forms. And I think a major thing is you don't have to understand, but you just have to be willing to listen, to learn, and to be okay with it. Sometimes it's tolerance. If that's a step closer to acceptance, then that's a step in the right direction. So we kind of have to push people in different kind of ways, more so with what they're comfortable with, because the last thing, we don't want you to die with your old thoughts. We want to be able to eventually get you to where you need to be. And then also, unfortunately, some people are just they're never going to change, right? And so that doesn't mean we should stop trying, but it's, they're not going to change. But the goal is to get everybody to change. So we have to kind of work in different steps. I think an easy thing for me that I did is that, there's a gentleman by the name of Gymnast Jay, and he's actually a veteran. He served in our U.S. military, and he's gay, and he has the best shoe collection of Louboutins and all these red bottoms and Chanel and all these beautiful shoes. And he wears his shoes and he does his pole dancing, and he served in the military. All I simply do is say, "Man, Jay, like you're an amazing athlete," or "Oh, I love those shoes. Like them shoes are rocking." Or "Where did you get those shoes? I need to get a pair for my lady." So just little comments of just support. And it's not like you're going out to a rally and you're marching for LGBTQ rights, but you're showing support for your friends. So those are some of the little things I encourage people to do to extend allyship that aren't as forward thinking or that are a little bit nervous when it comes to their advocacy. That's a baby step that you can take.
Yeah. And what stood out for me was you don't have to understand, you just have to be willing to listen. There's a stages of change model and the whole like pre-contemplation, contemplation, meaning kind of like a willingness. And then there's the change. And so just letting people know that there's baby steps towards finding that understanding. Thank you.
Right. Like we don't need you in the rainbow flag tomorrow, like we'll get there eventually. We don't need you at the gay rights rally in San Francisco, like right now. But maybe one day you'll feel comfortable enough to do that. But you can do allyship in a lot of other ways that are small little steps.
Yeah, I love that, B, and really well capped, Allie. I love how you talk about just being open, and I think a lot of times people are not even open to changing, or even open to hearing someone else's perspective. Like even, you mentioned Black people, like a white person's experience will be completely different than a Black person's experience, and just being open to having those dialogues, and sometimes they're uncomfortable. And I think it's really a large part is just getting comfortable with the uncomfortable and opening yourself up to expanding yourself, So I love that you mentioned that, and a great way to define allyship. You and I met at UCLA. Go Bruins. What
Bruins.
made you? I know, right? I'm
Go
like,
Bruins.
it's been, and Allie has a connection to
My
UCLA
parents
too.
met there.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
I know. So, what made you choose, to go to UCLA? Like, I have my reasons. I can't wait to hear yours. And do you get back there?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I live right down the street, so I'm back quite often. But I remember the first time I saw Demisha at UCLA. You were walking like on Bruin Walk. You were somewhere by like Spalding Field, the IM field. And I don't know if you had a tank top on or shorts, but I just saw this beautiful woman, just energy just came way before your physical presence came, just this energy. And man, you're amazing, gorgeous, just glowing. I was like, who is this woman right here? You were a freshman. And yeah, I was like, wow, she's just absolutely stunning. So, what brought me to UCLA was just the possibility of going to a school where Jackie Robinson went to, where Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Arthur Ashe, um, so many amazing civil rights leaders that went to UCLA, Ralph Bunche, and I'm sure there's tons of women. It's either Jackie Joyner Kersey or FloJo. It's one of them. I'm mixing it up right now, but tons of amazing women as well, right? So just the possibility to go to that school and to do some of the things that they did in when it comes to athletics and it comes to social standards and social norms, just pushing the agenda that we are humans before we are athletes, and we care about this country and we want to develop this country more so than being these professional pro athletes. And so that's what brought me there. And there were some letdowns while I was there, but I think that is a microcosm of the United States. It's like, we're not going to hold people just because you were a point doesn't mean that we're going to transition from slavery to Jim Crow and segregation and to where we are now. Like, we're always continuing to evolve, and we want that same evolution through the UC system and through UCLA. But I think that was kind of what defined me early on as a young athlete and a person, and I wanted to be able to continue to carry on that legacy.
Oh my goodness. You're like about ready to make me tear up thinking about all of the just people and the greatness that came out of UCLA. I got my kind of, start to UCLA when I was in sixth grade. So I didn't attribute it to greatness until later when I actually got to college. But I remember my dad took me there, and it was just one of the most beautiful places I'd ever seen. And I was like, I'm going to go to school here. I'm going to get a scholarship, and I don't know what I'm going to do, because I wasn't really that into sports in sixth grade, but I just said, you know what, I'm gonna like get a scholarship here, and I didn't know what I was gonna do, and I ended up doing it. So I said I've been manifesting since I was a child, like, and didn't even know what it was at the time, but I love that. I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you a little bit about your football career, playing with your brother. You guys both played professional football together at times. What was that like for you? Can you take us through some of the most memorable experiences playing together, or any hardships?
Yeah, I think, let's start with the hardships first, because we always want to end with a smile, right? But
Right.
gr- growing up in Chicago, we grew up in the Lathrop Homes projects, and we were super poor, grew up on food stamps. And I always tell people I know what it's like to sit in line for government cheese and cereal and milk and powdered milk on the first of the month. And then to live in a house, an apartment that was, infested with cockroaches and had gangbangers outside, and to see my friends get killed in the neighborhood and so on and so forth until I was 10 years old, right? And then we moved to Santa Cruz, California. But to keep us out of trouble, my parents put us in every sports possible. So I played baseball, basketball, football, soccer, diving, junior lifeguards, gymnastics, like anything to keep us off the streets. So to play, eventually, I kind of settled in football, and my brother and I, we always competed against each other. Like, that's one thing we had in our house, is we had competition, and we're both relatively the same size. We both won Super Bowls. We both played for over 10 years of professional ball. Like, and why did that happen? Because like our household was so competitive, so to go compete against NFL athletes, like, oh, that's very similar to competing in my house. And so the tough thing was when I didn't make it, because I got cut from 3 NFL teams, and I sat at home for 4 years just watching my brother play. And luckily, I was able to live in his house in San Diego, and I was able to train with him in the off season at the facilities that he trained at, and he basically paid all my expenses and my bills. That was tough, from an ego point, from a humility standpoint, and just pursuing and chasing my dreams and goals, and them not coming to fruition. So one year after a season I'd played in Canada, I went to a psychic, and the psychic said, "Your brother's surrounded by palm trees right now, and you should go wherever he is." I'm like, "Of course he's surrounded by palm trees. We live in California." And she's like, "No, give him a phone call and see where he's at." This is in front of the psychic. And so I call him. I'm like, "Where are you at right now?" He's like, "I'm in Miami." And that's really where palm trees are. They're
Yep.
indigenous to Florida. palm trees are not indigenous to California. And so he's like, I'm in Miami, I'm with the Dolphins, and they want to sign you. So, like, I think you should come to Miami and we should play together. Now, this is after 4 years of me trying to make it in the NFL. So my first NFL game, I went to Miami, I signed with the Dolphins, I made the team. He was on the team. One of my fondest memories was our very first game. Looking across from me was seeing my brother, and we run out of the tunnel together. And it was kind of like it was the first game of hundreds of NFL games that I was going to play in. And guess who was there right next to me? My day one, the guy that, always had my back, always supported me, took care of me, wasn't just a brother, but also was a father figure to my sister and I. So that's one of my fondest NFL experiences, and even life experiences, having my big bro, Femi Ayanbadejo, running out on the field for my first game that I made in the NFL with me. So
oh my gosh, thank you for walking us through that. And I'm glad you started with the hardships first and then ended with the story. Like, just, I got chills watching in my mind, picturing you and your brother running out together and looking at each other, and the psychic story. Wow.
Yeah, I tried to go back and see her again after that, but I couldn't get a hold of her because she was in Vancouver. I was in Vancouver at the time, but she was like amazing. She was like, I can see your whole life just by shaking your hand. I was like, man, maybe the psychic stuff is real. Like, these people really have some special clairvoyant powers that like most humans don't have, and there's something more here.
That is amazing. Like, I mean, just, I'm sitting over here like Ali with chills. That is amazing. Like, and you mentioned the competition in your house. That's what stood out for me, because it's the same in my family. Like, there's 5 of us, and everyone played sports, and my sister and I are really close in age. And so we were always competing, running track. I didn't play basketball. I wasn't as good as her, but I would dribble a lot faster, and I'd be running faster than I could dribble. So I knew track was my thing after that. But you talk about your career, like you've played for some just incredible teams, from the Falcons to the Bears, Miami, you were in Canada, and then finally, Super Bowl champ Ravens. How did you maintain focus and adapt to all those different play styles, coaching methods, like the team dynamics even? I mean, how did you do that?
Like, I don't know if because like we're from California and we kind of grew up in the same environment. But when I would go to a different team in a different city, they're like, oh, he's from California, he's weird, or he's different. But I think more than anything, I just stayed in my lane. Like, I stayed true to myself. I did the things that I thought was going to make me better. I wish I was a little bit more like my brother, where I would seek kind of outside communication, because sometimes when you do self-analysis and you're analyzing yourself, there's blind spots and there's things you can't see. Like, I'm not surprised that you're doing a podcast now. Like, you grew up around a lot of great and amazing people, and you've always shined. So I'm not surprised that the questions to ask, or you can seek out other people's talent, because I could see that in you. So sometimes there's things that we need from the outside that we can't see in ourselves. So I wish I did that more, but I was really good at just staying in my lane and just keeping the blinders on and staying focused. Like, I didn't have a lot of experiences during that time because I was just so laser focused on what it is I was doing. And life really opened up and blossomed after my football career, because there's so many different things I could do, from traveling and eating different kinds of foods. I decided to experience mushrooms after I played, which was a newer thing. I was able to, instead of taking different medications and drugs, I was able to experiment with taking THC and CBD for pain relief after surgeries and whatnot. So there's so many more things that opened up in life. But what I did, having those blinders on me, kept me focused. But I was able to play 13 years of professional football, 10 in the NFL and 3 outside of the NFL. And that led to a lot of success and longevity in the NFL. But there wasn't a lot of different experiences there. Really, success was just getting better at the things that I do really well and continuing to double down and invest on those things. But I had a great time nonetheless. There was sacrifice, but I wouldn't change anything.
Oh my God, I love that. And the blind spots, I love that you mentioned that, because I too had blind spots, like, growing up and coming up probably in my early 20s. And it wasn't until I started tapping in and, getting coaches and mentors and really, having people that knew more than I did, to help me with those blind spots. That's what really helped me soar. So I love that you mentioned that. And I still can't imagine, because I've seen the playbooks and I've seen coaching styles, and so the fact that you were able to adapt is just remarkable in itself.
Yeah, but that's just football. You know what I'm saying? That's
True.
football's football. And yeah, there's different plays, but it all comes down to blocking and tackling. You could do the fundamentals well, then you can do that anywhere. So the complexity of the playbooks didn't really mean much. What really mattered, like, how do you fit in the locker room? What's the coaching style? Like, what type of value do you add not only inside the locker room, but also to the organization? In terms of, how are you going to do community service? Like, are you going to get in trouble outside of the locker room? So I was always a value add when it came to those things. Yeah, I had my nipple pierced or my nose was pierced, and I was going to talk about equal rights and advocacy and those different things, which were kind of taboo back then. Like, teams didn't really want you talking about those things. But now you look at the way that things are today, I'm like, holy moly, I'd be even more of a value add to a team, because they love the whole social media aspect. They love that you have a brand outside of just what the team is. They love when you do different things in the community. And mine was more, equal rights advocacy and whatnot, and healthcare and stuff like that, which weren't the norms. But I think I'd be a lot more valuable now. So maybe a team will sign me back now. No, I'm kidding.
Oh my God. Oh my gosh. I
The
was like,
ship
are
has
you
sailed.
kidding
The
me?
ship has sailed.
Oh my goodness. Well, you also mentioned the CBD, and I'm like a huge proponent of that. Like, my cousin actually started a company, Superior Green Yard, and I love her CBD cream. It is amazing. And anytime I have, aches and stuff, I'm always using that. Like, now that I'm a little older, I would say, not old, but older, but I use it, and it's amazing. So I love that you mentioned that, and using more natural things too. So.
Yeah.
Right.
So I like that you said I work at getting better at my strengths. I was just reading that in a book about how often we will put all of our focus into what we're not good at, and then being frustrated with ourselves for what we're not good at. But you talked about putting focus on our strengths and bettering the areas where we are given gifts. And I think that is so important. So thank you for bringing that up. My next question for you is that you shared that you worked for the Santa Cruz Sentinel the first several years in the NFL. Can you tell us about this experience and how were you able to balance both at the time?
Yeah, well, I think that was kind of what led me. It was kind of the catalyst of doing kind of more social media or digital media in the future, because I ended up working for Fox Sports. I ended up writing an op-ed for the Washington Post, and all kinds of other opportunities that came later on. But while I was working with the Santa Cruz Sentinel, I would just do kind of like a pregame, kind of like, what are the things you should look out for when I was playing with the Dolphins, and we'd publish it before the game, like, okay, what do we need to do to win this week, or what are the strengths and weaknesses of the opponent, and then I think we'd do a post game recap or something like that. So it's kind of like the start to my digital, or my kind of working in media in a different kind of aspect, not like traditional that you put in a newspaper, even though that went in a newspaper and it went online at the time. But what things are now and what they were then are completely different. Like, who even picks up a newspaper now, right? Like, everything is digital now. So I can't remember who it was, but someone from my hometown newspaper, from the Santa Cruz Sentinel, was like, "Hey, Brendon, do you want to do this?" And I was like, "Sure, I'll take a crack at it." And then it led to so many more opportunities in the future. So sometimes you have to work your way to saying yes. And everyone's like, "Oh no, say no, say no. Like, you can't do this or you can't do that." But one of my big things is work your way and find a way to say yes. If it's within your bandwidth and it's something that you're capable of, and maybe it's something that you're not good at, but somebody's giving you a platform, somebody's giving you an opportunity, and you never know what that's going to lead to. So always try to work your way to say yes, especially when it gets you outside of your comfort zone. And then it gives you the ability to practice and to learn. And I had an editor that was working with me, so they would be editing my stories that I would send in, and I would see how they would edit it and make them better. And then eventually, like, I didn't even need an editor, or if the editor corrected things, I'm like, no, I intentionally said this and I want it this way so I can make a point. So it was a great experience at their expense, but I took the time to capitalize on the opportunity.
Oh, that's so great. I'm listening to audiobook, You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero. I don't know if I pronounced her last name correctly. Another guest had recommended it. And everything you just said about pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone is what we're listening to right now in that chapter. And I just feel between you and that, I feel the universe or God inspiring me to just continue pushing outside of my comfort zone.
Yeah, we're aligned right now. It's funny how that stuff happens, right? Like there's something I'd never heard of, and all of a sudden I start hearing about it. It's like pinging me. The universe is just sending all these messages. I love it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, I love the universal messages. Like, and it reminds me of that book by Shonda Rhimes, The Year of Yes, where she talks about like just saying yes to everything and getting out of her comfort zone, to your point. And that's what I've been working on this past year. And I have to say, it has pushed me in ways that I never thought, I may even think I'd be doing a podcast, but even just from writing an ebook and doing different things that are completely out of my comfort zone. So I love that you mentioned that. That's a gem for everyone watching. I read a quote in an interview that you said the NFL stood for not for long. And prepared you for your life after football. Can you talk about your transition? Because I've seen it firsthand through my father, who played professional football for 11 years like you. And it was, not easy at first transitioning, but what I think he did a great job was just reinventing himself, and being uncomfortable in a lot of cases. And I think my mom really played a pivotal role in helping him, during that time. What was your transition like?
Well, luckily for me, since not for long was in my head all the time and no free lunch for NFL. I mean, these are common acronyms that we know about, or abbreviations. But that was always in my mind. So I showed up every single day to work like it was my last day of work. Like I showed up every single day for 10 years like someone was going to take my job and I was going to be replaced tomorrow. That's how I showed up every single day. So not for long. And I ended up playing for a long time, even though it took me 3-4 years to get in. I was fortunate and I was blessed that it happened that way. And this was why, because by the time I was 35, I was still in the league, and guys are usually done at 25, 26. Your dad was blessed as well. He played for a long time. So I started my MBA, and I was going to school after practice. And one of my teammates that I also do business with now, Hunter Hillenmeyer, for Next Legacy Capital, he sits on the board there. He's one of the founders, and I'm an investor in that. And Ryan Neese, one of your
Shout
dads.
out to Ryan. I was just about to say, shout out to Ryan.
He's the founder of it, and very proud of Ryan.
Yes.
And obviously, Ryan's dad and your dad are, thick as thieves, right? So back to Hunter Hillenmeyer, I'm just kind of connecting the dots here. He was the first player that I played with that was in grad school. And I was like, Hunter, I was younger. I was 27 when Hunter was doing this. I was like, Hunter, what are you doing? You're a starting linebacker for the Chicago Bears, and then you're going to business school after practice? Like, you're crazy. I'm like, that's insane. Fast forward 8 years later, or 5 years later, 7, 8 years later, then I understood why he was doing what he was doing. He was just ahead of it than I was, because he was a little bit younger than me. Guys would go home after practice and they would go play PlayStation. They go be on video games and PlayStation, or they would just hang around with each other, just messing around or whatever. After practice, I'd be like, if my family wasn't in town, I'd be like, man, I have this free time. Like, what can I do with this free time? So I'm like, maybe I should go to business school. So I enrolled in business school in 2009, and I was going to University of Baltimore Towson Business School. After school, I'd sit in the front row because I would fall asleep if I didn't. I have accounting class. The teacher would be like, oh, what's it like playing with Ray Lewis? Or, oh, what's the team going to do today? I'm like, don't even talk to me. Let's focus on business. I'd be embarrassed in the front row. But I made sure I sat in the front row. Then fast forward 3 years later, I ended up transferring, but I ended up graduating and getting my MBA. So I think those 3 years of going to business school were just super amazing for me. I learned a lot about who I am outside of football. I was able to take off some of those blinders because I was so good at the game and I had it so dialed in. I'd been playing for so long that I knew exactly what I was doing. I was super efficient in football and in my studies and in my practices, that I could expand my bandwidth and I could start to delve and get into other things, which was business school. So I learned a lot about myself, and I learned that I had a PhD in teamwork, which a lot of guys don't understand and know that they have. And then once you start delving into middle America and corporate America, like a lot of people aren't really good at teamwork. And being a football player, I was so amazing at teamwork. Like we'd have competitions and my team would always win the competitions because I knew how to gel a team and put a team together, right? So the transition, I can't say that it was easy because I started 3 years before I even finished ball, but I got right into my first business, which was Orangetheory Fitness. And I had other businesses that I had while I was playing that I failed at, but just the MBA and going through that whole process really allowed me to figure out who I was, what my passions are, what my purpose is, and how to excel post NFL career. So it wasn't easy. There was a lot of time and effort and work and planning that went into it, but I definitely hit the ground running. And then when I became an entrepreneur, like there's no such thing as a 9 to 5. Like I was working for myself. There were 60, 70 hour weeks. But since I was doing something I was passionate about, I loved it. It was purposeful. Then, when it all came to fruition and all tied together, it was really successful. But I attribute a lot of that to Coach Bobby Field, which was my linebacker coach and longtime assistant athletic director at UCLA. When I was kind of towards the end of my career, maybe like 6 years in, of course, I played for 4 more years. I'm like, Coach Field, what should I be looking for? What is it that I can do after ball? And he said, Brendon, the only thing you should do is go to business school. I enrolled the next year and I never looked back.
Oh my gosh. Well, shout out to him. That is incredible. And I love that it's like you continue just to set goals, for yourself. And I think like that really helps with the transition. Like when I transitioned, I didn't play at the level that you did in my sport, but transitioning even out of college, like you don't really know who you are because your the whole identity is attached to your sport, And so it took me a minute, but I was willing to try a bunch of things. So that's another, piece of advice that I give to a lot of people that, ones that I coach, ones I just mentor, like it's just try things too. And so I love that you kind of set that goal to get your MBA, and then it just allowed you to, keep going. So love that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so crucial that you try things and you fail, but you always fail forward,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not like you're getting feedback from certain things that you do. You're getting feed forward. So we're always moving forward. We're always, learning, and the fails are so much more valuable than the wins because there's so many things we can win at, but we don't get anywhere from some of the wins because they're like little things. But the failures, then you go back and you start to tinker, and then you do a SWOT analysis of strengths, weakness, opportunities, threats, and you start to evaluate what it is that you did wrong, and then you start to do things differently and move differently. So yes, definitely try things and fail forward for sure.
I love that. That is my motto for everything. Like I'm new to entrepreneurship this last year, and I've failed in a lot of ways, but just it's been the most remarkable time. I've never felt more alive in just doing a lot of the things that I know that God put in me to do. And so like the fact that I'm living out loud now and trying things, like it's just been amazing. So I love that you said fail forward. That's so good. I have to steal that one.
Yeah, no, that stood out for me as well. That failure is absolutely necessary. It is that pain we need to motivate us to keep moving. And too often people are afraid of failure that they won't get started. And I think that that's the greatest failure, is to not try. And then the other thing that stood out to me was when you talked about teammate or teamwork being, and for me, that reminds me of an interview we had recently about the difference between kind of a boss and a manager. And a manager really does have to act like a teammate, and be part of the we instead of the I.
Yeah, absolutely. And one more thing on failure, it's like I was thinking about Elon Musk and his rockets. He's like, I need this rocket to last for 8 seconds. That's it. It's like the first rocket, he's not trying to land it on the moon, right? And if you're not failing, like, are you even trying hard enough? He's like, let's get all the data and everything we need to get. If this rocket takes off and lasts for 8 seconds, then this failure is a win. So people don't look at it like that. Like, yes, you need to go and you need to explode that rocket ship. And if it lasted for 8 seconds, then great. But if it didn't take off at all, then okay, like we need to reanalyze some things.
Yeah, that failure is a stepping stone to the next space, which is a success, right? If you really look at from where you started to where you are. That's a really great example. So just shifting gears a little bit, you had mentioned getting your MBA, and then you became an influential figure in expanding Orangetheory Fitness across various regions. Can you tell us more about that? And then what motivated you to dive into health and fitness, and what have been some of the key takeaways that you've had from this journey?
Yeah, so early on in the podcast, I had mentioned that when I was a kid, my parents kept me busy, and I talked about diving and gymnastics. I probably left out skateboarding and mountain biking, but I think I popped out with a ball. But whatever it was, I was going to move, and that was something that was part of my passion. And so it just only seemed natural after doing, a SWOT analysis on myself and going through business school. It's like, what should I focus on? What's something that I really should be doing? And it's like, oh, maybe health and fitness and wellness is something that I should look to explore and see if I can be an entrepreneur in this space. Since it's something I've done ever since I was a child, it's something I enjoyed and I love doing. And so that's what ultimately led me to that, was just analyzing and throwing darts and vision boards and just trying to eliminate like all the different things that are out there. And then what was left was something in the health and fitness arena. There were a few other things that stuck out that I would consider doing, but this was the one that popped out. And, we talked about the universe speaking to us. So on February 3rd, 2013, I played in my second Super Bowl and we won. That was the Ravens versus the San Francisco 49ers at the Superdome in New Orleans. And we won that game. So 3 days later, on February 6th, I went into an Orangetheory Fitness. My ex had coerced me to go in there, and she's like, all right, if you don't want to go work out with me, then you can cook your own dinner and you can do your own laundry and you can just sit in the house and be a Super Bowl champ by yourself. And I'm like, all right, let's do it. We'll go to Orangetheory. And so we did a workout, and the second I walked in there, and I was almost towards the end of my MBA, and we had a capstone project that I had been working on, was more in philanthropy, and I completely changed it after walking into Orangetheory that day. And then I started researching the business model. Luckily, the Orangetheory that I went into, the universe is speaking again. The corporate headquarters are right upstairs. It was the first Orangetheory ever created. There's 1,400 Orangetheories now. At the time, maybe there was 80, but still, nonetheless, the chance was 1 in 80 that I was going to go into the first one and their corporate headquarters were going to be upstairs, right? So all the signs and everything was just telling me like, hey, I need to get into this. And so I researched it, looked at the P&Ls, I looked at the margins, I looked at the business model, and it seemed very interesting. And it hadn't been in California yet. So I tried to secure 2 different areas in California, which was Los Angeles, which is my back, kind of my backyard, and then where I grew up, the Bay Area in Santa Cruz. So one thing led to another, and I was able to secure both of those regions with my partner, Amy Edwards and Paul Marcus. And we hit the ground running. It was a slow process, but it ended up being very fruitful and something that I'm still involved in to this day, over 10 years later.
Wow. And I am a huge supporter and participant in Orangetheory. This isn't for everyone what I'm about to say, but it worked for me. Because of Orangetheory, I was able to discontinue my thyroid medication that I had been on for years, because just the way their model works, and you can probably speak more to this, was able to just change my metabolism and change everything, stress, all of the cortisol levels, everything had changed, because of the work I was doing at Orangetheory and other areas of my life. And I, was able to get off my medication. So it's got a big soft spot in my heart.
Yeah, those are the stories I love to hear. And yeah, there is a physiological response that happens when you kind of train at these higher heart rate levels. And obviously we monitor all that. The workout is built on science, and there are biometrics and feedback that we get back. And we know that if you're able to work at 84% of your max heart rate for 12 minutes or more within the hour workout, that there's going to be physiological changes from growth hormone to testosterone to serotonin and different things that are going to dump inside your body. They're going to help heal your body and create some physiological changes. So the science is proven, but I'm glad that you are a proven model in person that has worked on. So I love it, Ali.
That's amazing. And Ali, are you doing okay after Hell Week? Are you?
Oh, We've had a couple weeks since then, but I got tricked. There was like what the coaches called like a day 11 or day 9. Oh, it was 8 days. So it was a day 9. And we had to go from base pace to push without any recovery. And that felt even worse than the Hell Week practices. Brendon, do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I missed that particular workout.
Oh my gosh. It was like we were already so sore and we thought we were on the other side and had made it and got our
Right.
t-shirts. And then we, came back
cranked it up on you.
workout and they totally tricked us. And I think it was intentional.
Oh my goodness.
Of course it was.
Story, and I'm sticking to it. What?
Of course it was intentional. They plan the workouts out, like the December workouts are already done, so they know everything that they're doing for December, and the coaches have probably, what is it? We're in the middle of November now, so the coaches will already have gotten the December templates and studied them. So everything's all planned out and scripted and very well choreographed. So
yeah,
yes, of course it was intentional.
Yeah, one of my best friends is she's a coach at she's a coach at Orangetheory, and I have a couple other friends that are coaches at Orangetheory, and they don't quite tell me what I'm heading towards, but I get like these smiles that I just know I'm screwed. All right.
Yeah.
And I'm not a runner, I'm a swimmer. I played college water polo. So for me, I made a goal. At home, I run a mile every single day, no matter what, even if it's just a very slow 12, 13-minute mile, I do it every single day so that I can do some of the pushing and all outs at Orangetheory. And yeah, it's just been incredible.
I love that you run a mile every day, regardless of what the pace is. It's like one of the most fundamental things of being a human being is running. And a lot of humans don't do it. So if you're capable of doing it, you should do it. And the good thing is, like, on our treadmills, they're super soft. So a lot of people that don't run outside, they can run on the treadmills because we have a flex deck. But offline, because I don't want all your listeners to hear all the secrets, offline, I'll give you a tip on where you can kind of get like a forecast of some of the workouts.
Can't wait. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, look at you, B, just sharing all the goods. Well, you also advocated for the passage of Fit Kids Act, federal legislation that would require schools, districts to report students' physical activity. I didn't even know that. That's amazing. What inspired you to be a part of this act and just your passion around children's health?
Yeah, well, it's just one of the initiatives that the NFL had. It was NFL Play 60. So we had the opportunity to work with Michelle Obama, and actually worked with the Obama administration a lot through my tenure with the Ravens and even after. But it was part of an NFL initiative. And, that was one of the more like common mainstream things that we do. A lot of people advocate for kids' health, especially as there would be cuts. And, what are the things that we would cut would be physical activity in schools, I'm talking about, and the arts. So I volunteered while I was at UCLA. I did the arts, and we volunteered in Venice, California, in Inglewood as well as in Westwood. We work at schools, and we teach the kids to perform theater arts with my buddy Michael Skolnick in Equal Opportunity Productions. And then when I had the opportunity to also participate in fitness initiatives with children through the NFL and the Kids Fit Act through through Michelle Obama, then I participated in that as well. It's right in my wheelhouse, and they're very important issues that make kids better at math. Exploring yourself through arts and exploring through physical activity, you're better at math, you're better at English, and it's proven that it opens up your bandwidth and it makes you better at so many other of your studies that it doesn't make sense that we would cut those things.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that initiative with Michelle Obama. That is so cool with the NFL. And also I can imagine it also breeds confidence in kids, and I love that about, sports in general. Just the confidence level that it brings the kids. I see it in my children. I now have 2 kids. I don't know if you knew that, but I have a boy and a girl. My son is 7 and my daughter is 6. So I see it in them and how it translates, down to their education as well. So I love that.
Yeah, well, we all want to shine. At some point in school, we want to shine, and not everybody's an academic, or not everybody's an athlete, or not everybody's an artist. So if we give them a little bit of everything, then we can find their lane and where they can shine, and then they'll be more confident in the other categories of education that they participate in. So I think it's important. And those things, we just tend not to think about those things. But I think, with all the science and data that we're getting back now, I think we're starting to put more of an emphasis on it. So that's a good thing that it's actually starting to change.
Yeah. So wild that there would be cuts to athletics and arts, like the two things that our children need in order to thrive.
Right.
Children learn through art and play. And that's how I do therapy with kids, through things like art and play. They need that creative outlet. They need to learn about sports and how to take care of themselves physically at a young age. So I just want to thank you for your participation in just, oh my gosh, so many different areas, but with helping children.
Yeah, thank you. And then think about like the food pyramid as well, like just nutrition in general for Americans. Like that was upside down. The food pyramid was completely upside down. And even before that, there was an emphasis on different foods that weren't the healthiest foods for us. So yeah, I think, there's a lot of different areas we're striving to continue to try to make things better. And another opportunity which really led me to fitness was when I did my analysis of like, what are some of the problems in America? It's health and wellness and fitness, right? We're the richest country, but we're also the most disease-ridden country, and we're also the most sedentary country, right? So when you look at heart disease and diabetes and different things, America is leading in that. And so what's causing that? It's being sedentary, and it's our diets as well. So that was another reason why I was like, oh, there's a huge opportunity in fitness.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And speaking of kids, what is Kidstrong? Can you tell us more about this?
Yeah, so Kidstrong is it's a franchise it's milestone based learning. It's an accelerator to teach your kids to be more confident, to teach them how to reach different physical milestones, and also builds their brains, bodies, and their character is really what we focus on. So, at 2 years old, a 2-year-old child should be jumping and landing off of 2 feet. So do people know that, or do kids practice that? When you start to reach 4 or 5, you're going to be in kindergarten and you're going to start writing. We want to start working on your penmanship. So we need to increase grip strength. So a lot of hanging exercises and pulling exercises and things like that actually help kids develop their writing and their motor skills. So we're a mile-based learning center for kids. And the opportunity came up for me to participate in that and to be a franchisee, but an area developer. And so I decided to grab up the territories once again that are in my backyard, the Bay Area, Orange County, LA, San Diego. And we have 4 centers open right now. We have Livermore, Carlsbad, Orange, California, Lake Forest, California. I'm working on LA. Now I have 2 more leases signed, and we have over 1,000 kids that work out at our fitness centers so far. And, hopefully we'll have thousands and thousands of kids that we're helping them, have more confidence, stronger characters, and working on their physical education as well. So it's been about a year and a half that I've been in this business, and it's been very rewarding just seeing how we're helping families and children across the board through Kidstrong.
I love that you touched on confidence and helping children to meet their milestones, because you think about younger kids and some kids just being naturally more athletic or gifted or coordinated, and just kind of helping everyone to be set up for success physically. That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm actually familiar with Kidstrong. They have one out here in Arizona, and
yeah,
I was blown away at what they offer. I mean, it's just such an incredible place. If it's in your area, you have kids, definitely go, because it's amazing. My son is I call him like a American Ninja Warrior, like a mini one, because he does everything. He thinks he's like part Batman, part Spider-Man. He's like climbing on everything. He's been this way since he was a child. So I understand like how important it is to get him into these spaces and to constantly test himself and to try different things, outside of his kind of comfort. And, as a mom, I'm usually like covering my eyes because he is always doing stuff. But I love that. I love Kidstrong.
He is his mother's son, right? But yeah, the kids are from walking age until 11 are the age categories that we have children. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's so cool. I thought it was a little older. That's so cool. That's amazing. Well, you're known for your positive energy. I always tell you this, you have such beautiful energy. You're such a beautiful human. And how do you maintain that? Like, you've been through so many different things, so many transitions in your life. How do you maintain that? Is it easy for you? Like, do you face challenges? Like, can you just half full? Like, it's amazing.
Oh, thank you for that. And I think it's so important. And I've been doing yoga for the last 2 years, and I call myself an intermediate yogi now. I'm not a beginner yogi anymore. I'm intermediate. Okay. So you see me in the yoga studio, like I got some skills. I'm intermediate now. And something that I heard, which totally resonated with me, and I'm like, this is me in a nutshell, is that there's two types of people, and you can either be a thermometer or you could be a thermostat. And a thermometer goes into a room and you feel the temperature, and you're the temperature of whatever it is that you're around. That's a thermometer. Or a thermostat, you can go into the room, and if it's a cold room, you can make the room warm. If the room is too hot and it's chaotic, you can cool the room down. And so I'm like, wow, that is me in a nutshell. And like I want to continue to be that. So when I meet people, um, I want them to remember who I am, and not like they don't have to remember like, oh, it's Brendon Ayanbadejo Super Bowl champion. No, like I want you to remember the way that I made you feel. So I always try to make everybody feel important. And just growing up and not having anything, I think the reason that I'm like that is because on Christmas um, we didn't have enough money to really buy presents on Christmas. So some family or families, they would volunteer, they would knock on your door in the projects of Chicago where it's dangerous and not safe, and they would deliver toys. And I just remember the way that that family always made me feel like they made our family feel special, and they made our family feel important. So I think that was really kind of the catalyst of what made me want to be who I am when I grew up. When I grew up, I wanted to be like them. Can I give back? Can I make people feel warm? And so there's a lot of different ways that I do that, whether I just give somebody a smile, or I open a door for somebody, or I do a podcast like this and I try to let my energy and my love and my passion kind of shine through. So yeah, that for me, that's important. And it's not always on. And if it's not on, I try to turn it on. Or some days, maybe I just don't have it. I have good days. I have bad days as well. I'm human. Um, but overwhelmingly, more times than not, when you see what's going on in the world, there's a lot of pain. There's a lot of suffering. And I just got back from Nigeria, and I saw a lot of different things that I hadn't seen in a long time, being back home in Nigeria. But the overwhelming thing I saw from a lot of people that didn't have anything was a lot of love, a lot of passion, and a lot of people that were thermostats in Nigeria and not thermometers. So I just try to shine through it and make people feel special, or make people feel important. It's not 100% of the time, but if it's 80% of the time, then tomorrow I want it to be 81% of the time. So I'm always trying to improve on that, but I think that's something that I'm always working on. But I'm very happy that you recognized it and that you mentioned it. So thank you so much.
Yes. And it's just, and I'm not the only one. Everyone that I know feels the same way about you. I love that terminology. I'm going to have to steal that again. And like so many gems on this call, on this interview. I'm like, I love that. The thermostat. I never would have even thought about that. I remember when I was young, my mom used to always tell us like, enter a room smiling, and that always stuck with me. And so like, no matter what, like whether I hop on a call, do anything, like I always enter the room with that energy. And I remember when Allie and I met, she said, you had such beautiful energy. Like, that's why I came over to you. We were at a pottery place with our kids, so, but I didn't attribute that to being a thermostat. I love that. I'm so good.
And here we are now because of
I know.
energy. Yeah. And
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you touched on how we make people feel. I think about that with like school teachers, for example. I don't remember any of the teachers and what they taught me. I remember the ones where they made me feel human. They made me feel important. They saw me. They tried to teach to where I was at. And it's just so true. It really is all about how we make people feel, how they make us feel, and walking into a room and being the thermostat rather than the thermometer. And I need to work on that because I get frustrated and irritable pretty easily, and I have to remind myself, let them be how they are, and charge up and be the change I want to see instead of falling into that irritability. So good reminder.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then on that same note, you talked about how you are an intermediate yogi. I do yoga as well. And I'm extremely flexible. I'm not going to show you right now, but
now you have to. Now you have to get up and do a pose.
I can turn myself into a pretzel. So that's all I'm going to say. I grew up doing gymnastics and ballet. And so I use some of those skills for yoga, but so enough about me. So in addition to doing yoga, you are a father, and you've done so much for this community. And so I want to hear about some of the other ways that you fuel your mind, body, and your soul.
I mean, being a father has been such an amazing experience. Like, I honestly don't know what I would be doing now. Like, some of my friends are single, or maybe they're single or not single, but some of them are not parents. And like, there's nothing brings me more joy than going to one of my kids' games, or, watching my son play soccer, watching my daughter play tennis, or just waking up next to my 3-year-old and, Daddy, I want this, or Daddy, I want that, or Daddy, do you have a surprise for me? And just being able to serve them. So I think right now that's like the most important thing for me is being a present father, but also their success, and taking part in their success. But yeah, being dad has been a life-changing experience, and being a girl dad has been something where I've learned a lot about women and things that I'd never thought before. So we had talked about, oh, what is it like? Like, we don't know what it's like to be LGBTQ, or we don't, some people don't know what it's like to be Black, even though we do. Like, as a man, I don't know what it's like to be a woman. And through my kids and through my ex-partner, like, I learned so much on some of the things that women, some of the challenges that women have, whether that's just taking an Uber or walking down the street at night, or how you have to move. And so thinking about those things for my daughter or my ex-partner, I've grown so much. So I like that I can add that kind of to my tool belt of things that are important, and can still continuing to work on advocacy for women's rights. And you think about how many Black founders that are females of companies, how many Black female CEOs are there, and then what is their pay structure and what is their competition compared to their white male counterparts. It's never the same. It's always they're doing the same job and they're paid a lot less. So I think that's something else that has continued to add, to make me more of a value add, that I'm conscious of these things. And those are things that I want to continue to work on. But also seeing success in other people. So even seeing Demisha, seeing what you're doing and partnering with Ali, and then you guys have an amazing podcast. Like, I love that. It's not just some guy podcast. And I think about some of the things that I participated in, and it's like, okay, this is male based, or this is, it's a little bit of having more of a eye to give my time and opportunities to people that didn't always have it, So I think that's something else that makes me feel good and nourishes me, that I want to try to give back in various different types of ways.
So what it sounded like to me was that you get your soul fueled by seeing other people succeed and seeing other people happy, and by having empathy, being able to put yourself in other people's shoes. That, I think that's the first, we talk about self-care and tools and techniques, but having empathy and compassion and happiness for others is a way that fuels your soul. That's really cool.
Yeah. And especially people that are close to me as well. Like, they don't have to be close to me, but like, seeing my kids or seeing, my friends be successful and do well. Like, I've done a lot. Like, I came from basically having almost nothing to being very successful, not only as in the NFL, but as an entrepreneur. But I think, as I transition into this next phase, and I'm kind of in the midst of it now, is that it's not about Brendon, it's about other people. And I can start with my kids. And of course, there's going to be a lot more than that. And I've continued to do that through the years, but delving more into that and philanthropy, my family, and just seeing other people succeed. I think that's going to ultimately be my next chapter. But I think that's the natural evolution for a lot of people. And even when I look at Next Play, the venture capital firm that my buddy Ryan Neese, John, and a few others started, even their transition is called Next Legacy. They changed the name from Next Play, and they partnered with another venture capital firm. And it's like, we have entrepreneurs, and then we also have people that are doing philanthropical things to fill their ethos of being successful, and then eventually giving that success to other people and helping other people be successful.
I love that you get your energy from your kids, like, and all the things that they're doing. Like I too am the same way, and constantly filling myself up through them selfishly, but I love that. And you mentioned your ex-partner. Are you divorced?
Yeah, well, we separated just over a year ago. We did 19
Oh,
years. We have three beautiful kids. We've had a lot of success together. We learned so much together. And so, yeah, like it's another transition, like being a single
yeah.
guy in this world today. Wow, it's
I
crazy.
know. Who are you
Ali and
telling?
Demisha, I'm going to tell you, it is crazy being single right now after not
I'm
being single
single.
for a
I
long
know.
time.
I feel
Oh,
you.
okay. What? It is wild out here.
Wild times. I'm like, this is not what I'm used to at all. It's
Yeah, like
uh
we didn't have the dating apps and all these different
no,
ways to communicate and the plethora of different people. And there's
yeah,
some beautiful women out there right now. I ain't gonna lie. There's a lot of
beautiful.
beautiful single women, successful out there right now. It's yeah, it's interesting.
It is interesting. Like I don't do any of the dating apps. Like I can't even go down that path. That's like a whole like job in itself. Like I'm like, but I think, for me, I'm like just taking it one day at a time and just being very open to it, and open to conversations now. Like I wasn't, probably, like I'd say a year ago. I was very focused on this entrepreneur journey that I've been on, but now I'm open to conversations and dates. So
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing because I was the same. Like I would go out and like you see, I'm social and I talk to
oh
people
yeah.
and so on and so forth. But now it's like I was never really like I was open to conversation, but that conversation was going to end there, right? But now it's like, oh wait, like I can talk to you later. I can talk to you tomorrow, or we can go to dinner or whatever. So like
Yeah.
that was kind of the interesting dynamic. I guess I'm a flirt or something. I don't know. I didn't intend to be, but I'm just so nice to people sometimes, and
Yeah.
maybe they get the wrong idea, but I'd rather be too nice than anything else, you know?
No, absolutely. And
I
19 years is tough to undo, you know what I mean? So that's a lot of years, a lot of experiences and memories with someone. So give yourself grace and time.
Absolutely.
Well, I have another question for you. And it's about, like, we ask a lot of our guests this because we love leaving, our audience with some little nuggets, in addition to all the ones that you've already shared. But do you have any books or podcasts that you frequent, besides Sunday SoulDay, that you can share with our audience that have been kind of instrumental throughout your journey?
You know, the funny thing is that I don't listen to like a lot of self-care or leadership or developmental type of podcasts, right? The podcast that I listen to is like the James Webb Space Telescope or what's going on with Tesla, Elon Musk, rockets, so on and so forth. Financially, like I'm always looking at the stock market and venture capital and new companies, technology and stuff like that. So like that's kind of like what fills me, and those are the things that I'm super interested in. Bitcoin, finance. So like it's very boring to a lot of people, but the self care and self development thing that I did, and I alluded to it earlier, was I've gone on 2 mushroom journeys in the last year. So exploring psilocybins, and they're very ceremonial. I did it with Sacred Celestial, and they do an intake form and they give you a proper dosage. It's considered plant medicine. It wasn't like a social, like, oh, let's go to a rave and do mushrooms. No, it wasn't like that. It's like a full on 24 to 36 hour ceremony. And
When you
it's
first said
been,
mushrooms, I have to tell you, I was like, did he just say what I thought he said? Did he just really say
yeah.
mushrooms? So
And you
like,
know, Demisha, like I've never drank, I've never smoked,
no,
I've
I
never
know.
done drugs. Like I'm like I told you, like when I said I had blinders on, I literally had blinders on. The first thing I did was I had knee surgery, and then I decided to try THC and CBD instead of getting hydrocodones. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
So that was the
Mhm.
first time I put something in my body, but I had to kind of like just reprogram myself that these things are plant medicines that are here to help us
Mhm.
versus putting something that is scientifically engineered that you can get addicted to, even though it's going to kill the pain, but it might fester a lot of different things inside of you, which America's got a huge prescription drug problem, right? So I wanted to look at like homeopathic ways for health and for healing. So once I did this, the THC and the CBD, then I was like, oh, one day, maybe I'll try mushrooms, it's plant medicine. And then when I'm comfortable with that, then maybe I'll try ayahuasca. And there's
Yeah.
different ways to tap into the universe, to our ancestors, within ourselves. And so like when I was reading the stories of people going and healing trauma from when they were in the womb,
Mhm.
before they were even on this earth, like as a full-on person, like trauma that they had from within the womb of their mother. And one of the ways to do that was through plant medicine, whether that be mushrooms or ayahuasca. I was like, wow, this is interesting. And me going through, a huge separation. I see you, Ali, going through a separation and so on and so forth. I'm like, let me discover a little bit more about myself. So I decided to dive into plant medicine in the form of mushrooms.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing about the reasoning behind it and how it is a harm reducing space rather than some of the narcotics or medications that are being overprescribed in our country. My one of my good friends is a licensed therapist, and she had gone through a big loss of her son, and she is now certified in administering psychedelics. So she does the mushrooms and ketamine treatment. And then I also am aware of the DMT, which is the it's somehow related to ayahuasca, right? And there's so many healing components in the micro dosing. It's like what you said, it's not going to a rave and doing a drug trip, but doing it in sort of a therapeutic setting for healing purposes. And I've also heard about people remembering being in the womb and healing from traumatic pregnancy or delivery, and having such a lightness afterwards. So I think that's really interesting. I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you. And then I wanted to ask you, so you continue to make a tremendous impact just everywhere you go. What are some of your personal and professional aspirations, and what's next for you?
Yeah, no, I think I alluded to it a little bit before. So with Kidstrong, we're 4 in, we have 2 more in development. Eventually I want to get to 20 or 30 units and then have private equity come and buy us out, very similar to what we did with Orangetheory. We got to 55 units through a private equity firm, Castanea. So I want the same thing to happen. I think that'll be my last business venture, will be Kidstrong. Of course, it has to be successful. There's a lot more work that needs to be done, not only from the franchisor, but from me as a franchisee, to continue to impact and really be a value add to families and to children. So we're working on that, and it's an exciting road. And then from there, I think, it's going to be all philanthropical, and really investing in my kids' future. And then philanthropical things that I want to help continue, whether that's helping the world be more efficient when it comes to being a green, making sure this planet's here for a long time. Opportunities, different things in Nigeria, clean water, opportunities, food sources. There's a lot of things that we need to work on in America, whether there's, food deserts or things that are, that happen in Flint, Michigan without, people having clean water. So yeah, mostly philanthropical adventures going forward, once I wrap up Kidstrong. And, I kind of plotted my 3, 5, 7, 10-year goals, and I want to get to a sale of Kidstrong within the next 5 years, and then really dive into all the philanthropical endeavors after that. But they will overlap at some point. You can't just stop one and then you think you're going to start something new. There will be an overlapping at some point in time.
Right, but you're good at overlapping, right? You
Oh, absolutely. There's always a plan in motion. There's always a plan, and as one plan starts to come to fruition and build itself, then the other one, starts to wind down, and sometimes there's multiple things going on at one time.
Well, this has been such an amazing conversation. Like, I just feel your positive energy, and it's made it really easy for us. And we just know that you're going to reach those goals. Like, I'm not even thinking twice about it. So good luck to you with everything. And thank you for everything that you do for so many different people, for so many different organizations. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you just for blessing Sunday SoulDay. I know that everything that you're going to do it with an inclusive lens and with a lot of love. You are just such a beautiful person inside and out. I've told you that from the moment we met. So, and nothing's changed. And so I'm just so proud of you. I really am. Like, just watching you blossom, all the things that you've touched, just very, very proud. Thank you so much for coming.
Well, thank you, Ali and Demisha, for having me on Sunday SoulDay. I really appreciate the platform, and I'm wishing you two continued success as well. And thank you for letting me be on with all of your guests.
Absolutely. And everyone have a wonderful Sunday.